It's so great when I offer an invitation for an entry bow, and the whole wall of people bow back to me. If you look at, they'll bow back to you too. Let's begin our sitting. Vast as the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Welcome back. It's wonderful to see your faces again, and I look forward to hearing your voices. Pardon me. Rather than beginning um, by launching into something um, that I might offer, as I usually do, I'd like to start with where I think uh, I've been hearing a good bit of our energy is right now. And that has to do with a reflection on the experience of last week's inquiry. Not everyone was there, I know. But even if you weren't, I think you'll get a feel for what we're reflecting on. And here's my question, my inquiry for you. Pardon me. What was different last week? And more importantly, what difference does it make? Not not just what difference did it make, what difference does it make, and what difference will it make now as we step forward? And there are some other questions I have, but let's begin with that. And Catherine Ellis, who's a head student in England right now in Sheffield, would you raise your hand and step forward for a moment? You were with us last week, were you not?
I was, yes.
Yes. And what reflection would you offer for your own experience and your own practice?
So, reflecting on what happened last week, I noticed a great deal of fear, which is a very familiar place for me, and it's something I recoil from. I kind of realize I have a belief that it's intolerable.
Mm-hmm.
So I was sitting with that, and you said something like, it's aliveness, the fear is aliveness moving.
Mm-hmm.
And that made a difference, and it has made a continuing difference
Uh,
because it was I've heard that kind of reframing before, but there was something about it that really
uh,
the other thing was that I really saw my tendency to want to prepare. So
mm-hmm.
I was sitting there, and I could just feel myself rehearsing a script, which struck me as being quite funny because it's so beside the point. But I caught the habit
Mm-hmm.
very clearly, and that was helpful. And inside myself, I noticed I was more upright
Mm-hmm.
and felt frightened and engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling that continued, has continued, that, you know, not preparing, but the opposite in a way, thinking, what's this? What's this? what's
Yes.
this?
Hmm.
And I think that I felt some fear around the head student leaving ceremony. That's for sure.
Well, I was
And
going to say it's a similar thing, isn't it? Because you're
yeah,
about to
yeah,
engage in this ceremony.
yes. And I'm just using the it's just energy moving as a kind of mantra, and it tells me what to do for the ceremony, which is not to prepare anything apart from knowing what I've got to say and do, but just respond in the moment.
Hmm.
So I think it's for me it's been very helpful teaching.
Hmm.
I,
It's it.
I feel more awake, and that is the whole point.
Yeah. Well, and that's when my when I asked the question, what difference um, does it make, and what difference will it make? Now you're definitely
Yeah,
touching on that.
yeah,
It's interesting when you're asked a question in the ceremony, just as I am every week in inquiry. People come to me and I can't prepare.
yeah.
If I watch myself and think about what I'm going to say, then I'm lost.
Because then
But
it's all about you. It's not
right,
about the encounter with the person.
but with being with the person, we'll see what arises between us, and that's something different. And it requires our wholehearted participation on both sides. And you spoke of the willingness and then everything that comes along with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we would say in Hakomi, like a probe that brings things forward.
And that's what I think I've learned most about having this entering the role of head student is that I said yes and carried all the fear and everything up just through. And that's been a huge learning for me, and I'm
Mhm.
very grateful for it.
Well, and we are too. Thank you for allowing me to call you forward here just to begin
Thank you.
these things. Last week, I also reached out and called to Mike Nazar, and then he had to leave. So, Mike, if you would raise your hand, there he is. And once again, I get two for one here.
There's Sue.
Uh,
Hello.
Hello. What part were you both here or no? Yesterday, last week.
I wasn't here. No, I
That's right.
have, I'm seeing clients and I had a client during that time.
And Mike, you were here just for a little while.
Yeah, I had to step off about 20 minutes early, and Judith texted me and said that you had called on me, and I was like, "Ooh," felt like a bad student.
No, this is life as it is, isn't it?
Yes. Uh,
The part that you did participate in, and then what you heard from Judith later, what is alive in you now?
what's alive in me now is, and what came out of inquiry last week was this feeling of being present. I think the question last week was something about where are you in this present moment,
Hmm.
if I recall.
Hmm.
And I had been in a very comfortable place for myself of realizing that I was living in a present state of mind, and I was feeling and still am feeling a sense of empowerment with how I decide to show up right now and the decisions I make about my emotional state, my intellectual state, my connective state with myself and others. And I walked away with that feeling of that's what I walked away with, a sense of how am I right now? And it calls on me to this moment to go, how am I right now?
And
And
you used an important word, a choice.
yeah. Yeah, because sometimes I think I can get carried away, especially with emotions, especially when they surround fear. I forget that I have a sense of choice in there. And sometimes I need my friends, my close ones around me, Sue, others that can say, what's going on? And then I can slow myself down enough to think about that and decide what is going on. And I think sometimes I protect what's going on because I fear that I'm making an impression or disappointing someone or maybe not doing things quote right.
Similar to what Catherine was saying.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I like the choice of, you know, fear is like, you know, the false events appearing real. But I like the idea of, you know, face everything and rise. And face everything has been something that I have literally sat with in the mornings because I sometimes catch myself going, you're avoiding. And I don't think of myself as an avoider. And so when I catch myself there, I realize it's a truth and I can sit with it and then act differently.
Make a choice.
Yes.
And Sue, there was something in you. You wanted, words were coming. What would you say?
You know, what I didn't get to hear much of what the inquiry was about, but what I did notice is his response later, like just his embodiment of what happened. I could tell that he was in this more engaged with aliveness place
Mm.
because he was being more clear about where he stood on things.
Mhm.
So I can't really pinpoint, but I certainly did a double take and I could feel the difference in him.
Mhm.
And that's,
Mm.
you know, I love the choice idea. I do, you know, we both sit together.
Do you both have a sitting practice?
Yes. And he's the one that motivates me now. I used to motivate him to do it. Now it's like he's like reminding me it's time. If I
Nice
want
dance.
to, yes, it's really a nice invitation.
Yeah.
So,
Well, part of what I want to underscore in what you're saying and why I invited you is because as you reflect on what you experienced in Mike as someone who's close, our practice isn't to have us enter some esoteric state or some
right.
perfected, but you could feel in an embodiment in him
Yeah.
something about presence,
Mhm.
possibility. And that's what practice offers us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
without it's something you could you experience as an
Mhm.
aliveness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
sense his energy for sure.
Well, and I have to interject too, is that what felt really, if you will, almost ticklish was that when Judith sent me that message, I didn't go to guilt or shame. It kind of tickled like I was a student that stepped out of recess or something and got busted.
Well, you had something that called you that you had to do to take care
Yeah,
of.
absolutely.
When
Yeah.
we go to shame or embarrassment or whatever, that's actually an avoidance.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Ah,
It's being captured and turned away by an old reactive pattern.
Mhm.
yeah.
Nirvana or nirvanic moments are moments in which we're free of reactivity.
Mhm.
Ah,
Ooh, that's nice.
yeah. That is
Not
nice.
some heavenly state. It's we're liberated, we're free
Mhm.
of reactivity,
Mhm.
of being controlled by those old habit patterns. And we it's not about being happy or in a bliss state. It's about being free of reactivity.
Nice.
Mhm.
I'll keep that.
Good. Well, thank you both for your responses. I'm
Well,
calling on people a little bit to see what's here, just a little bit, and then we'll go a little further. Um,
thank you.
yes, and I think maybe last time I'm not sure if I spoke, if I called on Cassie or not, but I was curious about her response because she's been with us from day one with all of this and helped us quite a bit. Is Cassie here? Yes, there she is.
Hi.
Hi there. What's alive in you from last time that's still awake today about all this?
All right. Certainly to mirror what previous people have just said. And also it was so many times when I approach the chair, it's because I have some particular struggle that I really want to have support and held in. And then as other people talk and I engage with them in the chair, I'm connected with the universal human experience of being stuck, and also feeling that liberation. And what I noticed last week was it was wow,
The feeling.
the feeling, and it was like self calls up self. And
Yes.
so this was more like we were just engaging self to self instead of engaging self with something that needed assistance. People were just bringing forward, when we're naming that present moment experience, then we're have to be in the present moment to name that experience.
Mhm.
And so it really brought forth being it just in the present moment over and over and over. And that landed throughout the week and continues to go forward that way.
Yeah, you're putting your finger precisely on one of the distinctions between an ordinary way of meeting suffering or difficulties in the world and what our practices um, offers us in some ways. This is stepping beyond coping and problem solving and feeling better. And I'll use maybe more classical words, but it moves us towards renunciation and vow.
Mm,
It moves us towards letting go of, let's see, what someone in a 12-step program said the other day? It's principle over personality. The principles of the practice rather than what I want,
mm-hmm,
which then is going to lead you to vow. What's going to guide me? And that's a little bit further than what you said, but what you said is the turning point where you look at what's this, our practice offers us the larger perspective of what's universal. That's what we chant in the beginning, rather than everybody coming to me and saying, here's my problem, how do I solve it? Here's my problem, how do I solve it? That's what we naturally do. But what our practice is about no matter what the problem is that you bring, how do you free yourself up
right.
to meet life, which is always going to be a problem.
Yeah.
It's not going to solve the problem of life. It's going to make you be free in a life which is full of problems and everything else.
And I've heard you say before that when, your side of the chair is often to look for what is the freeing thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, so when it seemed like the freeing thing was offered on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And that's where we go Buddha to Buddha, self to self.
yeah. And,
Thank you.
and also I noticed, I feel like my face is turning red for being called on. And I didn't think that I would be nervous or, I'll spill my guts, at the drop of a thimble.
So it's not that, what is it?
It's a deeper form of being seen. It's like not being seen for a particular struggle, but being seen just in the present moment seems more vulnerable.
Well, there's a word for that.
Oh, what's that?
Intimacy.
Oh, okay.
Being very intimate.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels more intimate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, Catherine was talking about too, that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, being seen deeply. Wonderful. Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for bringing this forward, Flint.
Yeah.
Really, thank you.
And I want to just call on one more person and then we'll open it up where you can call on me. Um, I saw that Wayne Carpenter is here. Wayne, would you click the little raise hand thing so you can come up? And I'm not sure you were here last week, though. Were you?
No, I wasn't.
That's what I thought. And I'm calling on you specifically because I knew you weren't. But I had a confidence that I could call you forward. And so listening to what you're hearing today and having been part of this for a while, what are you present to right now? What's moving in you now?
Well, very much of a reaching back into uh, spiritual traditions in Christianity that live in parallel,
Mhm.
and um, particularly the surrender of self preoccupation um, as not a must, but the path to liberation.
Yes.
Um, that for those of
Kenosis,
us who grow, go ahead.
that emptying of kenosis.
Yes, yes, kenosis. Yes. Um, I I was kind of celebrating with as people were talking uh, with the pleasure of hearing people uh, find the inner resource, but not as a problem to be solved, but rather the joining of the joining of us all into this, the vast robe of liberation.
Hmm.
It's very very touching to hear those
Yeah.
shifts or that sustaining of that.
Do you happen to remember, and I wasn't gonna, this is not why I called on you, but it comes to mind right now.
Uh-huh.
Do you happen to remember, I guess probably 35 years ago, when I came to you, because some of you don't know that Wayne has many wonderful qualities and experiences and trainings, and part of it is in more traditional clergy kind of training, theological training.
Hmm.
And I came to you and I said, I'm stuck with this verse from Gospels. Be ye perfect as I am, even as I see, that verse.
I do remember that. Yes.
Do you remember what you said to me?
Well, I believe I pointed out to you that the word teleoi that in the King James Version was translated as perfect um, has stuck many of us, myself included, trying to live a life of perfection rather than to live a human life. And so the verse is better translated as be a whole human being, know your purpose, even as God would know you, even
And
as God
that
would want you to be.
and that moment with you, Wayne, turned my spiritual life.
Wow, I didn't
It
know that.
really, it was an opening. It were those moments
Yeah.
where I came to you in inquiry with
Hmm.
something that was caught, and you said, "Oh, that's not what that word really is translated as. It's this," and it's like, "Oh, wholeness."
Yes.
And
Yes.
so the way I would be seen by a Buddha, by God, whatever,
Hmm.
in my totality, not as some perfected person. And that really made an enormous difference to me. And I don't know if I ever told you, but some 20 years later in Austin, one of my good friends who is a minister in a Methodist church said he was going to be on leave for a while and would I preach for him one Sunday?
Hmm. Hmm.
Fill in. I said, sure. And so some months later, I called the assistant um, minister and I said, what's in the lectionary? What's up? Guess what verse was that?
Right
How
out
could
of
that be?
Matthew.
How could that be?
Yes, how could that be? Oh my. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think I go back to that verse often in my own, you know, never-ending attempt to shed that perfectionistic tendency in me.
And
And
that's an
I
ongoing practice, isn't it?
yes,
Just
yes,
all of us.
yes, yes. Well,
That's
that's so much of what I derive as I uh, return now to sit with you and this marvelous group of people is the support for the practice.
yes.
Yes, that it's ongoing and enlivening and beneficial, and some mornings hard, and some days much more welcoming.
Yes. It's
Yeah,
everything.
yes, the
Yeah.
vast robe of liberation.
And if it's not all inclusive, it's not the full practice.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, yeah.
Thank you for um, coming forward with my request and for also just engaging that memory because I thought it was useful probably in service of what we're up to right now. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Yes. So I've been calling on you. Now you call on me. I My commitment is to not hold back or withhold from you. I can't tell you what to do, but we can discover things together as we've done. I think you're unmuted now, Kim.
Yeah. First, I want to comment on what we've just been talking about. And that is that I had this story with this koan, the flower sermon koan that I've been facing. And the story was that this was a very planned kind of ordeal where Buddha plans that he wants to pick a successor. He plans that he's going to hold up the flower. He knows where the flower grove is. He picks up a flower on the way. One story after another. And then I read another take on the story where actually one of the monks hands Buddha a basket of flowers. And what that brought was, this was not a plan, but he was given the basket. His immediate response was he looked out, he saw that the other monks were clueless because they were drowning in the Dharma. He looks over, sees the flower, picks it up, holds it up, and one thing follows from another. And Kashyapa too isn't thinking in words, but the smile comes before any words.
The immediacy.
Yeah. So I've really come to the same place as we did last week with this. How do you respond? It's one response after another. And I did a picture just about that today. But my question is really this, that we're so much into words, even with some of our like body scans and with our labeling when we're sitting. And we were talking last night, there was another koan we were reading last night where the Buddha, he's responding to a non-Buddhist, and he does the same thing where he's silent and the non-Buddhist becomes enlightened. But I'm wondering what's going on in his head, because I kind of project my head with this silent. Is he thinking, I'm going to be silent now? That would be the best teaching. And I'm coming to the point where I'm just really exhausted with these words.
Good.
And I feel like I've been really kind of cheating in the sense of so we talk about in our intensives being in noble silence. So I've been in silence outwardly, but inwardly the same stuff is going on. So it's kind of like, you're not going to catch me, which you probably have, but you're not going to catch me. I can have all the thoughts. And I remember a story where I don't know what it's called, but when you go to a practice period and you're new in like a Tasahara, you have to. Yes. So someone said, well, they told me the story that they got through this with 4 days of thinking about sex. And I felt uncomfortable about that he wasn't really playing the game.
Well, what you're talking about, I think, and you're pointing to, Kim, is how many internal coping strategies we have, just like external coping strategies.
Yeah.
And all of them are an attempt to avoid the intimacy and the immediacy and the anxiety that comes with this. This isn't a spiritual game. And these aren't like clever techniques.
Well, especially not to fool someone else. I mean,
That's right.
What's the benefit there?
It's not some kind of performance. We're not showing off it. What's really important in your story about Mahakashyapa in that moment, I think, and the Buddha really reflects that statement that I often make: how simple are you willing to let it be? And all the thinking and even the wondering what's going on in your head and other people's head is an avoidance, as a way not to be immediate and see what's here. Those
which
things
is,
are fun to do. I do it certainly, but it's not the essence of what Zazen offers us.
well, yeah, I mean, there was like right now, my hands are like this, and I had a sensation about that. You know, I
Mhm.
felt that.
Mhm.
And that seems to be kind of the new place I want to go,
Good. Embodied simplicity.
right there.
And make your hands like this. There you go. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
And I think Judy was fast on your heels.
Yep. Judy next. Yeah.
And thank you, Maria, for helping me keep the order.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hi, Judy. I had you on my list to maybe call on you today. Here you are. Good.
Wow, what that did for me last week was I had that thing of please call on me, don't call on me, please call on me, don't call on me, you know. But I'm not so sure I'd have put my hand up today if you hadn't done it that way, because I realized that the reason I wanted you to call on me is because a few times when I've had the urge to put my hand up, the anxiety has stopped me from doing it. So there was part of me thinking, well, if I'm not given any choice in the matter, it's easier almost.
Well, and you know this well because you teach it. The anxiety is the reason to put your hand up.
Yeah,
You think
yeah,
of it as a barrier, but actually, oh, I'm noticing so much energy. That's worth turning toward.
yeah.
How is it now?
It's okay. It's okay. I think partly because of that, because the sort of the yearning to be called on has helped me to realize that, you know, that it's something to turn towards. It's aliveness, as you said, and
What is
yeah,
that yearning to be called on? That's the action, but what's the yearning?
it's something about just being in this intimate situation with you
Mhm.
that I yearn for.
Yeah, I do too. To be chosen, to be loved, to be connected,
Of course.
which we've continued for so many years together in so many situations.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So what I've also been noticing is just as we were starting inquiry, some friends of mine have come to collect a garden table and chairs that I'm giving away. And I can see them out the window from the minute inquiry started till now. They're still wrestling with trying to separate the table legs from the tabletop and get it in the car. So I've noticed a distraction, but what I've really noticed is that the thing that's calling me away is that I think they need me. I think they need me to step in and help. And I sort of realised that that's often a sort of distraction for me, or something that wants to call me away from the present moment.
Good. But actually, the way you think you are needed is also part of the distraction because it's a habit.
Yes, exactly.
What if, because what you're describing is a perfect example of everyday life. Here you are in this situation, and there's something that's always happening.
Yes, exactly.
And so instead of the habit is maybe I should go help them. What if you deepened what you're doing right now, deepened your connection with yourself and all of us,
Mhm.
and just sent love to them that it may go okay. They may not struggle too much. So that you can stay here offering that metta love or loving kindness and living with your helplessness
Yes.
and let that be a gift.
That's so helpful, because it is, as always happens in these situations, the theme that comes up is a theme that's sort of been around for you. And I know that sometimes my tendency to sort of, you know, when my tendency to want to help or rescue is not coming from a clean place, it's because it's a habit or an avoidance
Right.
or something like that. Yeah.
That's a really important distinction, Judy. So I'm glad you mentioned it. It's not, the helping isn't the issue. It's who's wanting to help.
Exactly.
Is it some part that's the habit, or is it just a generous offering?
And you can feel the difference, can't you? I can feel the difference when I'm doing it,
If you pay attention and if you've practiced.
Yeah.
And that's the teaching that you're offering. Thank you for that.
Pleasure.
Mhm.
Lovely to see you.
It's good to see you. Thank you. Who's next, Maria?
Bridget. Bridget next.
Okay.
Hi, Flint. Thank you. As you've evolved with these others, you've touched on some of it, but I was curious from your statement when you were talking earlier, where you said shame is an avoidance technique that we turn to out of habit. And can you explain that a little more?
Sure. I don't know that I would really characterize it as a technique in a way, but in the moment, what I was saying is the habit patterns we have, which are actively defensive or contracting and collapsing, whichever way we go, there are so many of them that show up, are reactive patterns that we've learned through conditioning. And if we simply go to our favorite bad place or our favorite reactive place over and over and over, we're practicing our conditioning instead of practicing with our conditioning. We're practicing our conditioning, deepening. Becomes a habit, and it's a way to not engage the more immediate and sometimes shaky place that several people have talked about. And Wayne mentioned this too, of actually turning toward what's here. Now, sometimes we need help with that. That's why we're together. Sometimes we need a helping hand, a warm smile to help us move towards what we can't move toward. All I want to do is highlight that sometimes our patterns that we consider are just who we are, our personality, are actually an elaborated, lifelong practice of trying to hide, or let's say it better, trying to protect some vulnerability. And I don't think that it's useful just to blast things open and touch things that are too vulnerable. You have to be respectful, but without that direction, without those exile places being relieved, there's no freedom. Because we have to keep everything in place.
All right. Well, thank you. That helps.
It's a great question.
Deeper understanding. Thanks.
Thank you.
Kathy next.
You're back home.
I'm home. And when you were talking to the first woman, you
Catherine?
said something about if both people are really present to what arises, then the good stuff happens, or I can't,
Yeah, there's some possibility there.
Yes. And so it made me think about, because I don't practice the way some people that watch here do, but I have been to inquiry in the last year and I've learned a lot. My spirituality has really expanded. And I'm noticing because of what I've learned here, that sometimes when I am in conversation with people, which doesn't happen a lot because of COVID, but it's starting to being around more people. And on my trip, I was around people I didn't really know very well. And so sometimes I notice when I'm talking to people that they aren't there,
like most of the time.
Well, I mean, it's sort of, so my question is, when I notice that, is there anything I can do to help people feel more comfortable about being open? I mean, no, it's not my job, but I mean, how to invite them, and the words you might use, how to invite them to be more present with me.
Someone earlier, I think it was Cassie, I think she made a statement that self invites self, or your true nature, your openness invites openness in another. Um, and so essentially offer what you want, be that, and they will either, and you know about this, and they will either respond or they won't.
Yes.
Just like with, I mean, you say you don't practice, but Lord, girl, you have a very fierce practice.
I just
And
don't know what y'all call it, I guess.
yeah, but it is, and it's a very fierce practice, and it's a very and you have a strong sangha, a strong community of people practitioners, and you're involved in it all the time. And you have to offer the kind of freedom that one can find as an invitation, and some people will accept it and decide to engage that same freedom, and sometimes they won't. But all you can do is offer. It's it's why oftentimes I will. It's so delightful and so amazing to be with people who open in these ways, and you know that feeling. It's like magic, and sometimes. And there are times in which, without well, this is hard to say because it's not about judgment. There are times when I just feel so brokenhearted at what I do meet in the world and the difficulties. And it's not about a judgment or a sense of being better or anything else. It's just hard as you see more. One of the things that you see more of is the pain, and just how tough it is for everybody out there. But there's a name for that too. When you're able to stay focused and you see the difficulty, and that's called compassion. And so part of what I'm saying this for is because what you're asking about is the real edge of compassion practice. Oh, this is a tough place. I'll be patient. I'll hang in there. I'll stay awake. I'll at least make the offering and see. Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Love you.
I love you too. I guess she'll take me away.
Yeah, she'll take care of it.
Robin next.
Hi, Flint.
Hi.
And everyone. Last week was really the most like when we were in the same room together.
Mm-hmm.
There was, when we were in the same room together doing inquiry, there would be times that you would, it seems really outrageous now, that you would say, put your hand out. And then you would put your hand out. And there would be this physical expression unfolding in the moment before us, completely unrehearsed, unimagined. And last week felt the most like that, even though, of course, it wasn't a physical expression of that. It was really interesting to me. It's what I told Jim. He was helping cope with his car last week. And I said it was the most like being in the same room, because physical expression can only happen right now. I mean, unless it's pre-recorded. But I'm assuming you're really where you are right now, and I'm really where I am right now. And yeah, so that was really, it was so touching. It brought back so many memories, not really specific ones, but just the memory of touching, and how there was some incredible teaching of just when we met in a room. For those that don't know, it could be very crowded, and a lot of people are sitting on the floor on cushions, and then some people sitting in the back in chairs. And sometimes people coming from the back would need some assistance because they were a little wobbly, or just because there was so much in the way.
And it was solid people. It's not like there was a walkway.
Right. There's no aisle. And that we would reach up and be like a crutch, hold, something to hold on to.
A railing, a
That's,
bridge.
yeah, kind of like a mosh pit, but really different. And it wasn't even that we necessarily knew the person or had ever held their hand before. There was such an incredibly teaching. And so last week was the most like that. No stories, no, just, hi, human. Hi, human.
Yeah, what's here?
I'm breathing. You're breathing too?
You know what your recollections remind me of is once the person made their way to the chair in front of me, knee to knee, then there was the next small ritual. Yes, I put the microphone around them, and it's almost like an anointing or like putting a kata or something. It's so nice.
Yeah, yeah. So none of that's important now because we're doing it like this. But I think what's important is that you've brought us back to that form. And it was surprising and unexpected. But when I was swimming just before lunch and thinking about, well, will I have time to get to inquiry or not? I thought, well, how could I not go because of this presence? I can watch stories on TV, but this,
Rare. Thank you both. Love your new paintings, Jim.
Oh, thank you so much.
You know, I think we have maybe time for another. Is Penelope up? There you go.
I'm here.
You are. You are. And Maria's helping you. Maria's the one holding your hand and getting you forward every now.
And it's just what's different for me is that last week I just started like I'm doing now. It's just crying in the midst of all of the things that we were all sharing. And I mean, I didn't start, I really wanted to put stop videos so I wouldn't be, crying and everything in front of everybody. But then I thought, well, that's just what we're talking about. That's hiding then. And so
why would you deprive us of your immediacy and your fullness and your wholeness, like Wayne was talking about?
Anyway, it's been very powerful. And it's just like you were saying a minute ago in response to Kathy, that I just feel so much the overwhelming poignancy of the world right now.
Yes.
Which is, I'm grateful for everyone here because I really need that.
I really need you. You're saying to the group. It's I'm reminded of the statement that Camus made once. He said, live to the point of tears. And I don't think he was talking about despair. I think he was talking about this kind of fullness in which your heart overflows in.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if you'd all prepare, we'll get ready to recite the 4 practice principles together as a way of reminding ourselves of the cycle of practice. This isn't just some interesting thing that we do on Tuesdays. This is for keeps. This is the most important thing. And so we've been reflecting beautifully today on what does it depend on? If this is so important, as each of you have said, as Penelope was just embodying, what supports us in stepping toward each other in this intimate way? And stepping with everything in tow, not shedding anything, bringing everything, but also not getting caught in anything. That's the edge. And that's what our vows, I think next time I may speak about our central vow, the Bodhisattva vow, and how it supports this immediacy. But please, I'll continue to call on you, and please call on me. Ask more of me, just as I'm asking of you. What happens in between is what's liberating. Because if we're caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Thank you, everyone whom I either called on or who called on me. Let's continue. And thank you for your superb help, Maria. And I'll turn it over to you.
Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. Your support really does make a huge difference. There is a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org/contribute, and I'll put that in the chat for you all as well. Thank you so much. And we now move on to the second part of our morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are in the world, where we meet on the virtual porch for a further 30 minutes where we continue to meet and share. And if you want to take a couple of minutes break and then meet us right back here, then please do. Thank you so much. Thank you.